On this episode of Drinks Around the Table, I sit down with author Cynthia Fails, possibly the busiest person in the Kansas City independent publishing scene. We discuss her children's books, romance, and nonfiction books, and which part of running her publishing company, LaunchCrate, brings her the most happiness. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the show.
Right.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. It's been a long week.
It has. It has indeed.
What are you drinking?
A little bit of Coke, no rum. Because it's been a long week.
I completely understand. I'm drinking hot tea, so
I love it.
we're in the same neighborhood. All right, so we've got some ground to cover here with you. We've got options. I think I want to start with the writer side, and then I would like to get into the publisher side.
Mm-hmm.
But let's start with the writer side. So
Okay.
I'm familiar with, you've got Ella.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you actually have, that's Ella in the background there, isn't it?
That's Ella right over here. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So tell me about Ella. How did there's 4 books, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's 4 books in the Ella series. And those were birthed because of a letter that I wrote to my mom, thanking her for just the way that she navigates through the world. So I wrote her this thank you letter and acknowledged these 10 areas that I saw where her superpowers shine through, and told her in the letter that each of those would be turned into a book. So
Wow.
about every other year, I put out an Ella book. So it should be time for one. I haven't written it yet, though.
There's 10 total
10 total that are coming.
that will be out.
Yeah, 4 are out right now. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. That's a very personal origin story.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so tell us about Ella. Like
So,
or tell me about Ella. Tell all of us about Ella.
okay. She is, gosh, to say precocious, I guess would be fair enough. She's a combination of my inner child and my niece, who, when I started writing these series, she was about 4 or 5 years old. So you can imagine the types of conversations that she and I would have. So
Sure.
I took her energy and my inquisitiveness and rolled them all together into Ella, and that's what you get. So she's exploring the world and trying to figure out what life is all about, and usually discovers one of 10 superpowers. They don't know that there's 10 in the series, but a different superpower in each series. So in each book in the series,
Right.
which is pretty cool.
That is very cool. What was the what'd she think about it once the first one came out?
When she saw the picture and she saw the illustration of Ella, she said, "Oh, that's me. This looks like me." And I was like, "It does kind of look like you, doesn't it?"
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Do you illustrate it as well?
I do.
Wow, pulling double duty. So with each book, how do you approach the story first, or you have pictures in mind first?
So I look at, I go back to that letter that I wrote my mom, and that's my reference. And I figure out which ones I've already tackled out of the 10, and which one I want to tackle next, which one feels like it would be a good story next, something that I can write next. And then once I have that idea, that general idea, I'll write the story, and then I'll do the thumbnail sketches and illustrate the story as well.
Okay, very cool. Approach it almost like a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Yep.
so now you've got Rain, the Brain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one book of Rain,
2 books of Rain.
2
They're
books
back
of
here as
Rain.
well. Yeah.
Okay, okay, yep. All right, yeah, okay. Bottom left corner.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about Rain.
Rain is absolutely the exploration of my creative side. So Rain is a 12-year-old kid who uses everyday objects from around the house to create these inventions to save the world from aliens.
Well, that's awesome.
Yep.
What's so 2 books? Is there more on the horizon with Rain?
Yeah. So I started writing book three about a year ago. And no, that was in 2019. I started writing book three in 2019. And that's when I hit the drastic pivot, right? So I started writing book three in the Rain the Brain series. And I kept getting this feeling that I wasn't supposed to be writing that story.
All right,
And I
right.
just pushed through and pushed through and pushed through it. And finally was like, okay, what am I supposed to be writing? And that's when the Sugarplum series came out. So that's when I wrote the romance novel,
Okay.
which was totally
Which
out of left field for me.
well, that leads to I had that in mind to ask. So the sugar. Okay, so first of all, the Sugar Plum. There's two of that series out, right? What's
Yep.
the what? Okay, what's tell us about Sugar Plum.
So go ahead. You were gonna
Well,
ask a question.
especially because it's such a departure.
It's such a drastic change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was an interesting shift for me because I'd been writing children's books. I wrote a book about my grandfather, which we can talk about later, but that was the
Yeah.
only non-children's book that I had written up to that point, right? So that was a nonfiction book. Um, but but this one caught me by surprise. So apparently I wasn't supposed to be writing books three and four for Rain the Brain. I was supposed to be writing this romance series.
Right.
So the first one think of it like a Hallmark movie
I'm
where it's
familiar.
super cheesy at the end and it's kind of predictable, but it's kind of not predictable.
Yeah.
That's essentially what you have with the Sugar Plum series. So there's two books out in that. The third one I'm currently editing right now, so that one will be released in 2021. So
Wow. Okay. So that is
it's
it a
coming.
trilogy or is it? There's there
It's a
more beyond the
trilogy.
three? Okay.
I'm hoping it's a trilogy because I kind of want to finish the Rain the Brain series.
Right. Well, no, I know how that goes. When your mind is, yeah, you're. I've got this. I'm going to work on this project, and then
Yeah.
nope, I'm shifting.
Hmm.
I'm pulling this way. What's? I mean, how long did? Well, it sounds like your brain had kind of already shifted to that gear, but how long did that transfer take to get like disentangled from the world of rain to get into this new arena?
It was instantaneous,
Okay.
which is so wild to me to think about this, right? So I was writing books three and four for Rain the Brain as part of the NaNoWriMo challenge, right?
Okay.
And so I started on day one, November 1st, was writing book three in the Rain the Brain series and was struggling. And day two, I got up and just had this nagging feeling I'm not supposed to be writing this story. And so I said, well, what am I supposed to be writing? And my hand just started going to town and I'm mapping out this story. And I'm looking at this sheet of paper like, really? I'm about to write this? Am I really going to write a romance novel? Because it's such a departure for me, right?
Yeah.
So I started writing that one on November 2nd. And by the time November 14th came, I was done writing the first. I know.
I'm so
Yeah.
jealous of your output
52,000
ability.
words.
That's
It was just, it
insane.
was the last day on on the 14th of November. It was 6,000 words in 6 hours. And my husband was literally bringing me food. He was like, here, eat something.
You need
I'm
sustenance.
like, yeah, that Jim Carrey,
Right, right.
and that's what I was doing.
Oh, those are the sweet spots though when you land
Yeah,
there. And oh man, I am completely envious. I have never had that kind of output in one go, particularly not
yeah,
in 12 days or yeah, 12 days.
yeah, it was wild. And so I thought it was
That's
a fluke.
yeah.
And then last May of 2020, I sat down to write book two, and I was like, okay, let's see if we can do it in 30 days. And it was done in 16 days. So
Good.
I was like,
Oh,
I don't know what's happening. Maybe
I
because it's a romance novel.
yeah,
That's what I'm
well,
gonna say.
don't question it. Just let it ride. Yeah. So now, what is your? I mean, presumably your fan base is used to Ella and they're used to Rain.
Mhm.
How did that pivot? Like, did you have any kind of uproar from fans that were like, "What is happening?"
No, because they're moms that are buying books for their kids.
Oh,
So now mom has something to read while you're
right.
reading
Wow, covering all
Ella
the
or Rain.
bases.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
That's a very lucky break. That's
It
awesome.
is. It is.
So okay, so you did down to the third one. Did that come as quickly, or was there thing that you have like narrative debt you had to tie up and pay off, so it took a little longer?
It took a little longer, but I got it done in 30 days.
Okay.
I didn't write every day, but
Yeah.
I was also guiding some folks through the writing of their own manuscripts as well at the same time. So I'm like simultaneously coaching authors on writing their manuscript, and then reading their manuscript and providing them with some feedback, and then writing my own at the same time. So,
And I definitely want to get into LaunchCrate. Does that, so in guiding, kind of shepherding other people,
mhm.
does that affect your writing? I mean, as far as, do you, because I've never done that. I've edited, I've line edited, but I've
Mhm.
never done like a, with somebody had, this project and they're finding their voice. So does that, is it hard to not impart your writer's voice on a writer, or is it just a natural, like, that's their sounds, here's some ideas?
Yeah, so far it's been a pretty natural shift, which I'm really grateful for, because I can only imagine how hard it would be for somebody to try to take the feedback that's coming from my perspective and me thinking of my voice and it doesn't align with their voice.
Right.
Um, and so far it seems to have worked really well for those who have gone through. It was our idea to editor course for LaunchCrate, and so it's been pretty good. It's been really good to watch. Um, it's one thing to write your own stuff, right? You
Mhm.
understand the joy and the passion that goes into that.
Sure.
But watching that light bulb come on for somebody else has been really cool. So
Oh
that's
man.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, I imagine. And that's coming easy for you too. I gotta tell you, as this conversation goes on, my envy for you is becoming unmanageable, but I think I'll lock it down here. All right, so LaunchCrate, when did you start that?
So I started LaunchCrate when I started the Ella series, right?
Okay.
The very first book that I wrote was called The Christmas Cookie. So I wrote illustrated and then self-published that one, and thought I found a go-between that was going to be a good help for me. And the book that had a $5 profit margin per copy sold, I was only getting 14 cents per copy. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you guys didn't help with the book layout. You didn't do the cover design, literally nothing. I
Yeah.
just uploaded the files and they pushed the files. And so I started looking at all of it.
They didn't do
Right.
any marketing or anything?
None of it. Nothing. Mm-mm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
Yep.
horrible.
Yes, I started looking at all of the other books that people had uploaded and were selling through the same site. And it was like people are just accepting that this is the way that it has to be. And
Yeah.
the person that I am, I'm like, let me find a solution to this. So the next book that I put out, which was the first book in the Ella series, um, that one was published under LaunchCrate, but I was doing that at night um, while I was still working at UMKC during the day. 40 hours in the day,
Wow.
and then what equated to 40 hours in the evening because I was working on my stuff. And then I started helping other people publish their stuff as well.
So out the gate,
So
you were taking on other people's stuff.
yeah, at
Wow.
first I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing.
Right.
And people were like, okay, but you've published 3 books already. And so that just kind of made me stop and go, okay, maybe I do know what I'm doing.
Right.
Um, maybe I should test the waters here. And so 40 hours in the day, 40 hours at night, and I had to figure out, something had to give,
Gotta sleep
right?
sometime.
I
Yeah.
have to at some
Right.
point. So I decided I would rather have a really cool story about that time that I tried to start a publishing company than to get down the road 5, 10 years and be like, man, I wonder what would have happened if. So
Sure. Wow. Now that was, what year is this?
2017 is when I started
2017.
full time. Yeah. And it was
Wow.
like August of 2017. Mhm.
So you're rocking, you're not quite to your fourth year, and you've got what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10? How many books? You had a
I don't
dozen?
know. I have a lot. I don't
Wow.
know.
Well, because you mentioned, oh, and I do want to double back to that too, because you mentioned the book about your grandfather, the nonfiction one.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then you got the Christmas Cookie had a sequel,
There's
right?
yeah, so there's 2 Christmas cookie books. two books in Rain the Brain, and then the four Ella books takes us up to 8, and then 9, 10 with the Sugar Plum books that are out, and then my grandfather's book is
11.
11, and then I published a journal. I forgot about that.
I forgot about one.
I forgot.
Oh wow, that's impressive. That's awesome.
It's a lot. It's a
What's
lot.
your most popular?
My grandfather's book.
Yeah. Okay. So tell
Yeah.
me, I've seen the cover of that one.
Hmm.
What? Tell me about that one. How did that come about?
So I was sitting at, I think it might have been, gosh, when would that have been? His birthday was in September, and I told him in September that I was going, this was in 2015, maybe. I told him in September that I was going to help him capture all of his stories and write his stories down, because he's been telling the same stories to us over and over again,
Yeah.
which is really cool, and it's really rich history for us to have as a family. And I feel like, those stories, not just my grandfather's stories, but everybody's stories, right, really add so much to the human experience.
Right.
um, but the goal was to capture the stories so that my other cousins, there were only 3 of us out of 11 who were living in the Kansas City area. And I was like, the rest of them are missing all of this. So I was like, how can I capture these stories in a way that lets them, one, relive his stories, and two, hear my grandfather? And so instead of just transcribing the stories as he told them to me, I took the audio from the conversations that he and I had, and we've embedded them into the print book with QR codes. So you scan the QR
Oh
code, and
wow,
then you literally can hear him telling you the story. It's like you're sitting on the couch listening to him.
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's an awesome idea. Very cool.
That's why that's the most popular book.
Yeah. No, yeah, rightfully so. Well, particularly,
Yeah.
yeah, being a nonfiction too. That's awesome.
Hmm.
Very cool. Now, well, I would say which ones come easiest to write, but it sounds like the sugar plum ones. Basically, you
Yeah.
just sit down and
And then
channel
just, yeah.
something, and it comes
it's
out.
like it's like I'm listening to the characters for that
Right.
one specifically. Yeah. For the Rain the Brain series, I can visualize what's happening. And so I'm literally, my fingers are trying to keep up with what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But for the Sugar Plum series, for whatever reason, it's like they're having a conversation with me. So you have a perspective from Dr. Chris, who is the leading lady in the story, and then you have Charlie's perspective on the same um, situation. So you get to see it from both sides, which is pretty cool.
Very nice. All right. What do you have any projects that, I mean, obviously if there's something that you've got coming down the line that you can't talk about yet, that's fine. But is there anything that you're sitting on that you're like, I'm gonna make time for you. It'll happen.
Mm.
Or are you just taking them as they come?
I just kind of funnel it, yeah,
Yeah.
as it comes through me. That's one of the things that I learned after trying to force the third book in the Rain the Brain series was, if this is not the right time for you to be writing it, you will know.
Right. What's okay. Where does your well, you kind of answered that from the publishing side. Where's your
Mhm.
joy from writing come from? Like or yeah, where do you glean joy from while you write?
Um,
Like what part of the process?
Probably, like, this probably sounds cliche, but every single part of the process to me is pretty joyous. Just seeing it go from a rough idea, even just the arc on a story map, into one chapter that builds into another chapter. You know,
Yeah.
you get in that muddy middle and you're not sure where something is going, and then you get to the end, and then you're like, oh, well, that's why this had
Right.
to happen here, right?
Right.
That's awesome for me to experience
Oh
as
yeah, for
well.
sure.
And then when I hear from readers that that specifically with the Sugar Plum books, that they've picked it up and they couldn't put it down and they read it in like a weekend or something like that, that's really cool as well.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, those moments where you're particularly in the like the rewrite,
Mm-hmm.
where or not even necessarily the rewrite, but as you're putting the finishing touches on that rough draft, and it's like
Yeah.
those things crystallize, and you're like, I didn't even know that, man. I look like a genius here, but I didn't even
Right.
see that happening. Those are very cool moments.
Yeah.
And then publishing, you kind of already answered. It's that when you have that moment with a writer and they click and they
Yeah.
get it, and they're, yeah, I could see
Or
that.
for those who publish, we we have the idea to editor master course, right? Where we're working with people who have an idea and for whatever reason just haven't written their book yet. So we work with them, and in 8 weeks, or we say 60 days, they go from an idea to a manuscript that's ready for an editor, right? So there's that portion of LaunchCrate. Um, we also have, we call it our modern memoir service. So it's the same thing that I did with my grandfather's book. We do that for families as well. Um,
That's awesome.
we also have our picture book camp during the summer for kids. So they come in knowing that they're going to create a book. They don't have an idea yet, but they generate an idea on the first day. And by the end of the camp, they have an illustrated picture book. So they'll illustrate it
Wow.
themselves. And then we have the more publishing side of it, right? So we
Right.
have publishing services. So any point along the way in the publishing process, whether it's editing help, whether it's book layout or cover design, we can help with that. But then we also offer traditional publishing as well. And so we have, how many books are coming out this year? We just released one in March. We have a couple that are coming out in April. I think there's 10 total books that are scheduled to come out this year. Not all of them are, like, I think a couple of them are my books, right?
Right.
But we have other authors who are now joining the LaunchCrate ranks, which is really exciting for me. So,
Wow. That is, so I was going to ask how, I mean, at this point, because you're what, five, what do we say, 5 years? For almost 5 years in?
uh-huh. Mhm.
Um, what's, I mean, how many authors are in the Launch Crate stable, as it were?
So right now we have three whose books are out. And there are one, two, three, four, five, six who are seven who are coming. And then we started signing people for 2022 as well. So,
Nice, man. There's
so
a lot of facets to your business here. That's awesome.
yeah, I'm tired of wearing all these hats, though. I need some help.
Yeah, I can understand that. What's well, man, I keep coming to the question. It's popping into my head that you've kind of already answered already. But I was going to say which part's your favorite, but it seems like well, it doesn't sound like any of it's a not a good time, but for you, it's busy maybe. But
Yeah.
it's the shepherding part. I mean, is that
Hmm.
the part that you? Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
love that part. I just love, and before I started doing this full time, I was in education, more specifically coaching in education, right? So I worked with, I've worked with pre-K through college students. Most of
wow,
my time was with middle school and high school students, and then I did almost 5 years at UMKC working with first year students. But we were coaching them to really build and develop those skills so that they could be successful. And so my entire educational journey, my stint as an educator, was meant to help really bolster skills within people. So I love that light bulb moment when they're like, oh, I
I
didn't
get
think I could
this.
do this before, but now I see how
Right.
this connects to this, connects to this, and how I can impact all of these things. So,
Wow, that's awesome. I keep saying that, but it is awesome. What's okay, how involved were you with not that we got it in 2020, but the convention circuit? Like, did you go to cons very often? Is that a world you
no,
live in?
no. I feel like I probably could do more of that now, um, specifically with the Rain the Brain series.
Yeah.
Thinking of the type of books that those are in the genre. I know it's middle grade readers, but uh,
That's
even adults seem to enjoy the stories. So
yeah. Well, and even
yeah,
if they didn't, middle grade, I mean, those do pretty well at cons.
yeah,
Um, no, yeah, I think you do great at cons. I mean, I particularly some of the local ones, like they had PopCon at the library
Hmm.
that I went to, would be awesome for you. But I miss cons. I do well at cons. I solely online, I'm not doing as well,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to venture, like trying different things. Um, with conventions, yeah, that's for me. The thrill there is when you have, you somebody has met you at last year's con and they bought your book, and then they come back that next year and they're like, just kind of gushing about, I loved this and this character was cool, and what do you have? Like, what else do you have? And
Yeah.
that's a cool feeling. Um, let's see here. Where do I want to go from here? This is the problem with not having it mapped out better in an interview format. You have lulls. What have you? All right, so you've drawn the Ella books, you've drawn the Rain books. Is there anything? Is there anything you haven't drawn that you want to in a book?
Mm, not that I can think of yet.
You just covered all the bases.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you clearly you put out a lot of art and you're involved with the development of a lot of art. What is the art you consume?
Mm, that's a good question. Um,
I knew I'd get to one eventually.
Local local artists. Anita Easterwood is one of my favorite local artists, and I
Okay.
love her work. So when I can, I like to add, some of her pieces around here. My all-time favorite artist is David Garibaldi.
Okay.
So we have a lot of his stuff hanging around the house. Um, and more recently, I started purchasing art by Nicholas Smith. He's the one that did the Chadwick Boseman Black Panther um, installation at the
Think,
Disney.
okay, yeah,
Have you seen
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, okay, yeah, no.
His stuff is pretty cool too.
That was very impressive. What what's with your art, what would you say influences you and your voice?
Mm. As a consumer of art, or as
Well, just as,
like
okay, yeah,
when
I
I'm
did
drawing?
shift gears quickly there. Like in your production of it,
Hmm.
can you see whether it be some, movies or books that you've read or whatnot, can
Hmm.
you see an influence on what your writer's voice, like what it's evolved into? Can you see any influence in the DNA of your writer's voice?
Mm, probably. I would imagine so. I think about um, specifically for the children's books that I write. I think about what I was drawn to when I was younger.
Right.
And I got to grow up in the time of Jim Henson and the Muppets and Fraggle Rock and all of
Yeah.
that fun stuff, right? And
Yep.
so that influences a lot of what I do. It influences the way that I rhyme within the Ella series.
Okay.
Um, this year, I'm writing one song per month. Um, this was March. The month of March was supposed to be a ballad,
Right.
and
I
I,
remember that. Yeah. You said add a line or a snippet, and I added
yeah,
one. That's
you
right.
did. Dream the Dreams of Poets
Poets
Lost.
Lost.
It's in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Nice.
It's
I
in the
totally
chorus.
forgot about that. Oh,
So I,
wow.
I played this I played this ballad for my husband, and he was like, this sounds like it could be in Fraggle Rock. And I was like, okay, thanks.
Take it. No, that's awesome.
We'll go with
That's
that.
high praise right there.
Right.
Wow. No, yeah, I am very much looking forward to that. So
Yeah.
you've done what, a month?
One per month. Yeah.
Okay, my envy of you. I can't handle much more of this. So you write songs too.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, are the other are the other monthly ones out for public consumption?
Absolutely not.
Oh
I
man,
and I am the only reason I'm going to share March is because I asked for
input
lyrics,
from
right?
the
Yeah.
from the
So
social
give me some
media.
words, I'll add it to the lyrics.
Right,
So that's the
right.
only reason that's going out.
What was the turnout on that? You had, when I posted, I think you had 3 or 4 people maybe that had
Hmm.
already done one.
Yeah.
What was the final count?
I don't remember how many people. The list. I was recording part of it this morning, so the list of the words is here, and I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words. One of those was your phrase, "Dream the dreams of poets lost," but
Right,
corduroy,
okay.
water hose, wheelbarrow, beehive, dream the dreams of poets lost, exact, excel, exalt, and bidet. That one came in. I was like, oh, thanks.
Oh, wow.
Got it. This is a ballad for my bidet now. Thank you.
That's hilarious. So I've done I used to write flash fiction, and
Hmm.
I'd have weeks where it's like, okay, I've got nothing coming. Give me like what give me some prompts. And I
Yeah.
used to for Lauren, for her birthday, I would write um a short story, and people could throw in their prompts. And it was much like that, where you'd get just this disparate, like, this is going to take me forever to make a story. I can't fathom doing that to music.
Yeah.
I very much am looking forward to listening to this song.
There were several versions of this. The first one that I wrote was in 3/4 time, and I was like, "That's not working." So I was like, "How about 6/8?" Nope, 6/8's not working. Let's go back to 4/4. So it's shifted keys. The verses have changed.
Right?
The chorus has stayed mostly the same, but yeah, there's been
Wow.
multiple versions of this song.
See, I would promote the crap out of it with the Fraggle Rock angle. You could just have my money, like, without listening to, even if I didn't have any part of like a line in it. I
Yeah.
would like Fraggle Rock. That's a huge selling point for me. But I can't wait to listen to that. Well, all right. So we're running out of time. Where can everybody find you?
So they can find me at clfails.com if they're looking for information on my books.
Okay.
If they're looking for me specifically, you can find me at author CL Fails on Facebook
Okay.
or CL Fails on Instagram. There is a CL Fails Twitter account. I don't really use it. I only tweet like 4 times a year.
That seems to be a theme here. Like almost everybody that's been on
Yeah,
the show, like we have Twitter accounts, but we don't
I don't
I
really use
don't,
it.
for whatever reason, we just don't go to Twitter.
Yeah. If you're looking for LaunchCrate stuff, it's at LaunchCrate on all social medias or launchcrate.com.
Right. And I'll put all that in the description of the episode here. But
Cool.
in the meantime, thanks for having a drink with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me. This was fun.
Definitely, this was awesome. I will do this again. We will have you on, and hopefully there'll be another song in the mix and 12 more books, knowing you. But
Fingers crossed. All
all right, take it easy.
right. Have a good one.
And that wraps up our visit. Remember, if you'd like to get together for a drink, just reach out. We'll put something on the books. Meantime, like, share, subscribe, do all the things down below. Till next time.